This lesson is going to focus on something commonly known as Sun Salutation A. Sun Salutation A seems to have attained prominence in a place called Mysore in India. And it is a very common sequence used in many postural or pose-oriented yoga systems, because it has this nice ability to create flexibility in those who struggle with flexibility, but it can also create strength in those who maybe need a little bit of strength work. So it's one of the things I start out with, because if you're flexible, it'll probably challenge your strength a little bit, especially with the upper body. If you're strong in the upper body, it's going to challenge your flexibility. So in a way, this will sort of help us all as we continue on this journey together. Sort of, obviously, we're not going to get to the same place. We're all highly unique, but it'll start to bring us a little bit closer to that center. The style of yoga that it's really commonly associated with is something called Ashtanga Yoga, which was a style really championed by Pattabhi Jois. Now, it's important to understand that, so the word Ashtanga means 8 limbs. And instead of naming his style of yoga after himself, he doesn't call it Jois Yoga, he called it Ashtanga Yoga. Other yoga teachers have named them after themselves or something else. I only say that because Ashtanga is also commonly associated with an aspect of yoga philosophy from something called the Yoga Sutras in an 8-limb approach. Now, that's really only one element of a much longer text. It's a significant element, don't get me wrong, but I want to just distinguish Ashtanga Yoga as the sort of brand name for Pattabhi Jois's approach versus 8 limbs of yoga that is within the Yoga Sutras. I believe that he was probably inspired by that, but still want to create that distinction. Hopefully you did the last video at the very least, really worked on grounding, getting connected with the breath, because we're going to start to move. And if you haven't really had that opportunity to ground or get connected with your breath, I'm going to encourage you to pause this right now, go back to the previous lesson, take a moment to really arrive before you start to really move here, because we're going to actually start standing. So if you got a yoga mat, great. As you can see, I'm just using a rug, trying to show that this practice can be done with really next to nothing. Now, if you have a yoga mat, that's great. I would recommend, if you have socks, to peel those off and come towards the front of your mat, or if you don't have a mat, somewhere where you can step back and you'll be okay. We're going to come into that mountain pose. So we're going to go back. This is really pulling a lot on lessons 2, 3, and 4. Again, if you haven't watched those are great ones to really set a foundation for what we're about to do, because we're not going to take as much time as we did breaking down the poses as we did in those lessons. So starting in mountain pose. Find all 4 corners of your feet and see if you can make your feet parallel without looking at them. Make sure one foot isn't further forward than the other. And then go ahead and check that out, make any adjustments that you need to. And working in with a little bit of opposing action to help you ground just a little bit more now that you're standing is to push down into the feet as you lift up through the crown of your head. Shoulders relax down your back. Heart soft. Breath deep. We'll begin what's commonly known as half salutations, just to get our bodies a little bit more prepared. When your next inhale comes, take the arms actively all the way out to the side as you create a huge circle. Fingers and arms actively reach up as the shoulders actively reach down. Bend the knees. On exhale, lean forward as you go down, forward as you go down. Finishing your exhale by pulling your chin into your chest, pulling your belly up into your body, and maybe straightening your knees just a little bit more. On inhale, float up halfway. Hands can be on your legs for support. Take the round out of your back. Okay, remember, so shoulders squeeze back together behind you. Crown of the head extends forward, weights forward, tailbone back. Opposing action here. Go ahead and hang out here for a moment. Just get this feeling of this shoulders not being forward, but instead pulling back. This is something that can be very difficult if you're not used to this. When your next exhale comes, it might not be when I start moving. Wait for yours. It's okay. I'm not moving fast. You can catch up. Come back to forward fold. Chin in the chest. Belly pulls up. Maybe straighten your knees a little bit more. Inhale. Come all the way up. Bend the knees a little bit to support your back. Reaching all the way up for arms overhead. And then exhale. Arms down to the side. So that's commonly known as a half salutation. We're going to do 2 more of those. I'll talk you through 1 more. Here we go. On inhale, arms up. Maybe look up at your hands. On exhale, forward fold. Inhale, float halfway up. Take the round out of your back. Weight shifts forward into the toes. Tailbone pulls backward to help find balance. Exhale, forward fold. Maybe you can grab on the backs of your ankles, try to draw yourself a little bit deeper, maybe not. Bend the knees as you come up. Strong back, inhaling, arms to the sky. Exhale, close the sequence down to mountain. So go ahead and do 1 more of those on your own. Maybe without even looking at me. And if you forget what pose comes next, turn off your mind and turn on your breath and see if your body doesn't remember. If you have to peek at me, that's fine. If you screw up and you add a pose or forget a pose, that's okay. Right now, it's just really more important that you follow your own breath rhythm rather than being influenced by what I'm doing or anyone else. If you're already done, just hang out in the mountain. If you're not quite done, take your time. Again, don't rush just to get with us. And then pause. In mountain, once you get there, you might want to bring your hands on your body for a moment just to check in and feel. And now we'll start to go into the second half of Sun Salutation A. Inhaling the arms up, shoulders away from the ears, really reach. Exhale, swan dive forward, forward fold. Inhale halfway, take the round out of the back, prepare the spine long. Now we'll exhale, bend our knees, bring our hands down, step 1 foot back, step the other foot back, come into a plank pose. So the second part of Sun Salutation A, we'll break it down. Again, we'll kind of go through it a couple times before we put everything together. But I want you to hold plank pose for a moment, preferably without using your knees. Trying to build a little bit of heat in the shoulders here. On your next exhale, go ahead and go back to downward facing dog. And readjust your feet as you need to. But take a look at your hands. Make sure one's not further forward than the other, that your pinky finger or your middle fingers are parallel going forward. As you push your chest through, so our shoulders don't hang out here on top of our wrists in downward facing dog. We continue to push the chest through as best we can. Heels might be lifted, heels might be flat. But let's look at our feet. Make sure they're not turning out or turning in. Make sure one isn't further forward than the other. And you can even bend one knee and straighten the other here, just to kind of pedal it out. Sometimes teachers call this walking the dog. And come back to even. We're going to float back into plank pose. And this time we're going to lower down into that yoga push-up. So if you need to drop down onto your knees, that's fine. Just make sure the hips aren't back here. Draw the hips forward so you're creating like a ramp with your body. As you exhale, lower forward, pausing into that hover position, resisting the ground, and then heart first, belly a close second. Point the toes, point the legs. Inhale, shrug the shoulders up to the ears to start the lift. Shoulder blades together behind you, and then shoulders down the back for a nice strong shoulder loop in cobra pose. Looking down at the floor here. Exhale, send back just through child's pose briefly. Not stopping there as we go to downward facing dog. And again, readjusting. So I'm using my rug here, I'm using my carpet as a way to kind of keep myself stable. If my hands were way out here, my feet were out here, I'd be probably slipping. So play with the geometry a little bit. At the same time, you don't want to be too close. You don't want to be in like a half downward facing dog, half forward fold. So finding your sweet spot might take a little bit of doing. Let's go through that sequence again. On the inhale, shift into plank. If you don't need your knees, don't use them. If you need them, go ahead. Shift the shoulders a little bit forward so your elbows can stay alongside the body. Hover. Heart first, belly second. Gently to the ground. Point toes, point legs. Inhale. Shrug it up. Shoulder blades pull back. Shoulders down the body. Push back through child's pose. And eventually back to downward facing dog. We'll go through that one more time. And then we'll put this all together for a Sun Salutation A, Ashtanga lineage. See if you could find some deep breathing here. The inhale is going to float you into plank. Initially, shoulders on top of the wrists. Then shift forward ever so slightly as you exhale. Lower halfway down and pause. Hover. Heart first, belly second. Point the toes, point the legs. Inhale for your cobra. Again, using your upper back. We're not using our arms to help push us up. Exhale back through child's pose and to downward facing dog. Adjust your stance as you need to. Now, to come out, okay, to finish this sequence, we'll be in downward facing dog. And we're going to do the first 4 poses, what we did in lesson 2, in reverse order. So to do this, we want to end on an exhale. So time your exhale so it ends as your feet get to your hands. So you walk your feet all the way up, finish your exhale at the exact same time, because the first pose after downward facing dog is an inhale into half fold. And then the exhale, the forward fold. Chin in the chest, belly pulls up in it. Inhale, arms all the way up and overhead. And exhale, arms down to mountain. So we've kind of put this in 2 parts, a little bit of mesh together. So now we're going to do the entire thing all at once. I will be stopping in plank pose. It's important to note that typically sort of the classic Ashtanga style Sun Salutation A, you wouldn't stop in plank or high push-up. You would go right down to low plank. But for pacing purposes, for beginners, I think it's helpful to practice that when you start. So here we go. Mountain pose. Go ahead and give it a little shake. Wiggle into your feet, feel down, establish your foundation. Establish your breath. If you've lost it, if you've been riding it this whole time, awesome, keep that going. When the inhale comes, arms circle all the way up and overhead. Shoulders down the back as the fingers reach up. Soften the knees, dive it down, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Round is out of the back. Weight is forward into the toes. Exhale, bend the knees. Hands come down, step back. Take an inhale in plank. This is what I was talking about. This is kind of going to be our pacer. And now exhale, knees down if you need to. Forward as you go down, elbows straight back like a grasshopper, hover. And then gently, heart first, belly close second. Point the toes, point the legs. Inhale slowly as you lift into cobra. Keep that inhale going. It can be a little tricky in this pose. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. Now, typically we'd hold this for about 5 full inhales and exhales. If we were in an aṣṭāṅga class, as you establish your practice, this might be a very uncomfortable pose. So hold it for at least 3 breaths, 2 or 3 breaths minimum. But if you're starting to get comfortable with it, or you want to challenge yourself, you can stay here for as long as 5 breaths. Don't worry about that right now. Instead, just focus on the breath that you have going at the moment. Now, we're going to come out of this on an exhale. So you're going to start your exhale in downward facing dog. And as it goes, you're going to walk your feet forward, finishing your exhale as soon as the feet get to the hands. So you can immediately inhale, come halfway up. Remember, it's the first 4 poses in reverse order. Inhale, arms all the way back up. And exhale to mountain. All right. Let's do that once more together. Inhale, arms up. You might start to feel some heat building in your body. Totally natural. That's kind of the point. Bend the knees, dive forward, forward fold. Inhale, halfway up. Round comes out of the back. Pull the shoulder blades together. Shift the weight forward. Long spine. Exhale, bend the knees. Hands come down. Step the other foot back first. Coming into plank. Giving yourself an inhale here. Gather. And then exhale, lower. Low plank or chaturanga. Point toes, point legs. Cobra, nice and slow. Keeping the back of the neck long, eyes down on the floor, working the shoulder blades together and down. Downward facing dog. I don't know if you can tell how my carpet is sort of wrinkling a little bit there. That's showing that's kind of, I'm stretching the carpet. I'm using that to keep me stable. If you're using a beach towel, same thing. You're going to kind of get yourself situated. Now, when you pick your foot up, you're going to lose that. So if after you have established your stance, then really stretch whatever you're using out as best you can. Preparing to start to bring ourselves forward, finding an exhale and timing it just right. So whatever your breath rhythm is, you have to decide how quickly you need to move forward to catch the inhale to come halfway up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to lift. Exhale, mountain. Now, if you think you've got that, go ahead at your own pace and rhythm. If you kind of need a little bit more help with it, that's fine. But what we're essentially going to do here, we've done 2 together. We're going to do 5 more. Now, it's not a race to get through, see how quickly you can do 5. In fact, it's kind of like what I'd love you to do is try to extend them until they take longer because you're moving with your breath. So I'll be calling out what I'm doing to help reinforce the pattern for you and what happens with the breathing. If the movement is hard enough, you can really just focus on that. You can start to incorporate the coordination of inhales and exhales later. But if you're starting to get the hang of it, that's kind of the next level, is can you coordinate the inhales and exhales with it? And then can you deepen those inhales and exhales? Here we go. Again, I'll be talking it out just to help you reinforce. Don't feel like you have to wait for me. If you get ahead of me or if you fall behind, just kind of listen to me in the background, but listen to your breath, listen to your body first and foremost. Mountain pose. Arrive on an exhale, ground down. Ride and inhale, arms come up overhead. Exhale, down to forward fold. Inhale, lift halfway. Exhale, step back, plank. Take an inhale here, gather. Shift the shoulders slightly forward. Exhale, lower halfway. Elbows alongside your body. Hover, pause. Heart first, belly second. Inhale into cobra. Shoulder loop. Exhale, back to downward facing dog. 3 to 5 full breaths here. Remember, in downward facing dog, if you need to bend your knees a little bit to keep your tailbone reaching up toward the sky. On your next exhale, we're going to work yourself forward. Inhale halfway up. And exhale. Inhale, arms up overhead. And exhale, back to mountain. So like I said, you're going to do 5 of these on your own. If you want to take a break for a moment, I'm going to show you what it would look like if we didn't pause in plank pose. And I'm also going to show you some variations that you by no means need to do now, but the more you work on this, the more you can start to play and have some fun with it. So again, if you just want to take a break and watch this one and then go back to your 5 on your own. So a lot of times there'll be some jumping and some more athletic movements. I'm going to try to show you what that might look like here. All right. Inhale, mountain. Staying the same to begin with. Exhale, forward fold. Nothing new. Inhale, halfway up. Now we're going to go all in one exhale back to low plank. I'm going to bend my knees. I could step and do that quickly, or I can hop back right into low plank. Inhale, coming up in cobra. As you can see, I didn't stop in plank at all. That was just one exhale back, and then back to downward facing dog. Now, after 3 to 5 breaths here, sometimes you can just kind of like saunt, you can kind of just walk, you can keep your legs straight to come forward. There's also some jumping forward, and people who really practice Ashtanga Yoga like on a regular basis can do some amazing things. Now, doing those amazing things is just interesting physical feats. It's the quality that you do it with that we're looking for, that integrated, breath-oriented focus. That's the most important thing. But like I said, just for fun, we'll see how this goes. I might flip over. Who knows? I don't know. So what I'm going to do is try to jump for it. So I'm going to bend my knees here, look in between my hands. That's where my feet are going to go. Finish the exhale, and then come forward. Inhale halfway up. Exhale. Inhale, arms come all the way up overhead. And exhale to mountain. So I don't know if you noticed, but when I jumped, my carpet sort of slid out. But you can sometimes, people will jump up actually into a handstand and then pike their bodies down to prepare. So a lot of amazing things. Again, not important, but can be fun if you want to play with that as you develop your practice. But for now, stay simple, stay connected to the basics, which is watching the breath, feeling the sensations in your body, staying integrated. That's really what we're looking for. So go ahead and go back to your own rhythm. Go back to doing another 3 or 4, depending on how many you have left. But after you are done, come down, lay onto your back. Don't do it now. I'm just showing you. And come into a final relaxation with your eyes closed. Stop controlling the breath and just be. This final relaxation, sometimes called Shavasana, the corpse pose. Just allow yourself to lay flat, palms face up, and just feel the effect of your practice and allow your body to restore for about 2 minutes. No more than 7 or 10, but try to get at least 2 minutes in. Again, not now, when you're done with the rest of your sun salutation A's. So enjoy the practice, keep breathing, notice what comes up. If it's hard for you, notice you might want to avoid it. There's no one else in your room with you right now. You could easily just turn this video off. I'm going to encourage you to not. Instead, just take breaks as you need to, stay with it. You're an amazing person. You'll be surprised of what you're capable of. But take the time that you need to do it and know that it doesn't need to look like how I was doing it or anybody else. It's your practice. Keep rocking it.